All right, so one of the biggest questions that you may get is, what do I offer for this property? How do I evaluate a property and make sure I'm giving the right price that's allowing my seller to be satisfied? If you're a wholesaler, giving enough margin so that your end buyer can actually make a profit, and of course, you getting paid for all your hard-earned work. So this is Courtney Rollins from Life and Transitions Experts Podcast, also a CEO and founder and sales for Estate Pro Service and do REI deals. And I got one of my great, awesome team members and good friends here, Javon. How's it going, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good, real good.
Javon's a beast on the phones. He's had years of experience chatting and talking to folks and in different spaces and all. But today we're just going to take a look at. I was going to show him how I compare properties and come up with the market value, and then show him a great app that we use called Propstream, that if you've on this channel, you're probably familiar with, but if you're not, it's an awesome data source for being able to collect really data from all over the nation and I think even the world, that allows you to do a lot of things, pull lists, pull data so that you can make calls as well as make evaluations, and it has several other features as well. But then I also want to show some folks, it has a paid subscription. Some folks may not have that. So how do we use Zillow to find out what the property is worth? So Devon, man, my flow really, there's a lot of rules, right? Knowing your buyers is so important. And because if you're selling your property to a flipper who's going to come turn around and sell that later on, you may have a different strategy for if you're selling a property to someone who's going to hold on to the property, or if it's maybe it's a creative financing and you're assigning a deal that's set up like a subject to or owner finance. The evaluations can look a little different, but so that we won't confuse anyone or confuse ourselves, this is the main way I evaluate properties. I base it off of what buyers are actually buying in that area, same type of property. What are they buying it for? So what are the cash buyers buying the properties for? And so let me share my screen and go over to Propstream here. So here we are at Propstream. Come in and we just put in I'll just put in a dummy address, like, let's see, 15 South Carey Street. Actually, so we put this property in, right? It's in Baltimore. You'll put in the filter and the features when you go to the search bar, and then you go over and click details. And what's awesome is they already have the information of the seller and all that good stuff. But back in the day, we had to look this up old school, go to the SDAT and check out the State Department of, I think, Assessment and Taxation to figure out who the buyer was, and then all these different services out now, and it makes it a lot easier for us to find out. But over here in the comparable search, you're going to have to change some of these features here, especially with this market. In the past, I would share with sellers or with buyers, even sellers sometimes when I'm trying to educate them, but I would share with buyers, here are the last 6 months of comparable sales, the last 6 months. But because we're in a rapidly changing market, lately, I've been pushing that to about 3 months, because we're really trying to figure out what the buyer's behaviors are so we can price it at a good price. So I have it right here, October 1st to 12/15, the time I'm recording. So that's 3 months and 2 weeks. Now, for the square footage, usually you want about 250 square feet above the asking price and 250, what asking price, 250 above the original square feet and 250 below. And Propstream will normally do that for you. So that's pretty awesome. It's already set in there. Now, if you're in different cities besides Baltimore City, or when you're a really highly condensed city like Baltimore, you're going to want to make the radius about 0.25. Now, if you're more in the county or the suburbs, like I'm in Durham, North Carolina now, I could extend that out to 0.5 for half a mile. But Baltimore is block to block. Sometimes it's side of the street to side of the street, values change, you know? So we want to make sure that we have that in there. Now, Baltimore has a lot of incomplete data, so usually you would want to put in the max bed, max bath being the ones that you have. But sometimes there's so much for Baltimore particularly that I found that I usually leave those blank, because it usually leaves out a lot of the deals there. I do try to match the property type. So this property class is residential and the property type is said townhouse. For many of our properties, especially in a rental space like Baltimore City, it's going to be residential income general, but it could be different for your area. So here it did say a townhouse. There are a lot of row homes and townhouses in Baltimore. And so boom, now we have on our side, we have all the properties, and it's great when they actually have photos because you can tell if they are similar properties or not. So we're getting an idea of two things. One, I just adjust the amount so that the highest amount is at the top and the lowest at the bottom. And I take a look how long they're on the market for, all that good stuff. But I'm looking and seeing, okay, this Cleveland townhouse sold for 226. There's one sold 225, 225, 208. So that's probably a pretty stable number around the 210s, 215, 220s. You usually want to put it a bit lower than the actual prices out there, just so that you know you can sell fast. Now, this is me thinking about a end buyer that's going to sell or flip this property. So I already know that even though I don't give after repair value on my flyers, I just give data because people can argue about that. I do know that this property is probably going to sell anywhere from, and we have we have a 184 all the way to 226. So somewhere in between there, about 205, 210 to be safe. And then if I wanted to take some of the, if you're thinking about as a flipper, if you want to take some of the rules like the 70% of the after repair value minus the repairs and the holding cost in your assignment fee, you could do that. So we could take, let's say 200 for the sake of making this easier today. 200, 70%, 200, 140. And then if you look at your property and recognize it needs about a mid-range or about, 50K, 60K worth of work. And of course, you subtract that 50K, that's 90. You want to subtract your fee around 10 to 20K, 25K. So now you're at 65K that you're at least, that's where you want to go. So you may go to your seller, and after you have spoken to them, and hopefully they've shared what they're looking for, you can know what offer you need to present. We could even have a whole other podcast on how to present offers, and we should do that. But right now we're just talking about how to evaluate it. At least we know on the team where we're trying to be. All right, so that's using the 70% rule. But there's another way that you can do this. You can go over to status or a public record sale situation and click on cash buyer. Now, these should be all the property that's sold for cash. So I see right now, 208, someone bought a property for 208. Someone bought cash for 184. It's interesting. But I see here a 56,000 is what it bought for. That's what I was expecting if it's not fixed up. So I'm going to stretch this back out and go back out. And if you can't find enough data, then you can play around with the time or the miles. Just take that in consideration when you're giving its value. So I'm going to back out about 3 more months and see what cash buyers are buying for. All right, so I still see, that 200 price, 119, 72, 56. All right, so this is kind of a wide range, but I would still, try to be as lower as possible. So really, it sounds like it's around that same range of the 56, 55, 60. So if I get this about the 55, 60 range, this thing should sell pretty quickly, depending on the condition of the property. So if you're out there and you're concerned, okay, Courtney, how do I know about, how much the repairs are going to be, which is important to know. That again could be its own podcast, but I highly recommend that if you are starting out, this is one way that you can network really well. You need to get to as many properties as you can so that you can know in your city what properties are selling for. You can bring in contractors with you. Maybe you do need to pay them 30, 50 bucks to get a couple of valuations, but you'll start getting the feel for, okay, these properties are selling for this price. These properties are, this is what a full rehab costs. This is what a mid-size rehab costs. This is what a turnover costs in your city, your area. If it's just a quick turnover, I'll usually just put 10K in. There's people who do it way less than that. There's some people who say 15K for a turnover, but it really depends on your market. That's why you need to know your market. So I'm not going to give you like a rule of thumb. I'm really going to encourage you all to go out there, connect with contractors, and connect with your buyers. If you're having conversation with your buyers and they're giving you good feedback, you can ask them, okay, how much are you going to put into this property? And you're just collecting this data. And so all right, this neighborhood, this city, I know a full gut is going to be 120K for most people. Some get it 75, 85, some maybe a little higher more, but I know that's how much it's going to be. This is just a quick turnaround. I know they're only going to spend 5K on this. So knowing that is going to help you know what margins to buffer for. But when we're talking about evaluating around where we want to be, go into Propstream, put in the date range at 3 months right now. Maybe by the time the market stabilizes, you can do 6 months. Make sure the square footage is 250 lower, 250 above, and make sure the distance, if you're in a real tight metropolitan area or metro area, is 0.25. If it's a little wider, 0.5. Some things to think about too, though, is when you look at the map, make sure there aren't any huge I sound Baltimore, man, huge any huge neighborhoods or not neighborhoods, but natural or man-made barriers. Like if a big highway is crossing through and you see properties on one side of the highway selling a little higher than the other, and your property's on the other side, you want to err on the lower amount. Same thing is true when it comes to natural barriers, and you can even look out for neighborhoods as well. And also make sure that if you do have pictures, that's obviously a great thing that you are comparing like properties. We can't compare ranch 1-floor properties to 2-story properties, or properties that have brick sidings to properties that have vinyl siding or whatever siding they have out there. Obviously, I'm not a super pro when it comes to rehabbing and all, but you don't have to be. That's the point. And we don't have to spend a million years trying to analyze a property. We're trying to make sure we get it at a price that works for the seller, works for the buyer, and of course works for us. So any questions about Propstream, Devon? Because you may be representing some questions people may have, or even like thoughts or comments or extra things to add, because you've been playing around with this a lot as well.
No questions as of right now. I mean, you kind of broke that down pretty much for the third grader to actually understand. Really.
Well, I hope so. And and this allows us to move pretty quickly when we want to like get back. And again, a whole nother conversation could be on presenting offers. So this is really like information. So when me and Javon are talking to each other, he could be like, hey man, I'm looking at this property. I'm thinking it's around 60. I've already qualified the seller. He's already talking about, 45 or 85 or whatever he's talking about, she or they're talking about. We at least have a kind of a sense of how realistic they are. And also, please don't let that, folks, do not let the price that the sellers say blind you or make assumptions about what they are willing or able to take. Sometimes sellers, particularly now, may be still thinking they're in prices that are higher, and every seller assumes that their property is worth more than it is quite often. I shouldn't say every, but quite often. And you got to understand their standpoint. They want to maximize the equity that they can receive out of it. But that does not mean that through conversation, through education, if you really are providing value, if you're really trading speed and convenience for certainty, and you're being competent and all, and you recognize the situation is the case where, hey, this really is just what I can pay for this, and you're bringing a lot of value, you don't assume that seller won't take that quite often lower price. And also, that's another reason why we very rarely, if ever, put out the price first, because if a seller, because of the value you're providing, wants to sell the property for 40K, and you actually see that, oh, I can buy it, I can actually sell it for, I can get 60K, then you're still doing that seller a great service at 40K, folks. I'm telling you, it is those thin margins when you're getting properties at low prices serves the seller better. Why? Because what's going to happen? That property's going to fly off the shelf, right? And this mug wanted that thing, so that's exactly what they wanted. So they're going to be happy. Your buyer's going to be happy. You're going to be happy. But if you do like Courtney Maurice Rollins, ask me how I know, getting some properties razor thin, and now he's taking past the inspection period to sell it, you're nervous, you're sweating it because you want to, have self-integrity and do what you say you're going to do, but you recognize, oh, I got the property locked up too high. That is a dreaded feeling, having to go back to your sellers and do that. Now, if you have to do that, go through it, push through it, make it happen, lead with integrity. But I'm telling you, if you get the properties at a deep discount and able to walk away because it doesn't work, you're going to save yourself headache, and you have way more energy to put towards these properties that actually can fly off the shelf because you got it at the right price. Let's rock and roll over to Zillow. So now you may not have Propstream, and you may not necessarily even want Propstream after we show this. So let's go to Zillow. Quick and easy way to do it on Zillow. This works on Redfin too. Actually, I think I like Redfin more. But I'm gonna put in Zillow, same property. Let's see now. It says under, so we got it down here. Now you would scroll all the way down, and they usually have properties that are sold. You're going to usually ignore the Zillow Zestimate. I think you're getting a little better, but Zillow Zestimates are based off of data that's not always accurate. So that's not the place that you would go. But hey, where'd it go? Nearby homes. Yeah, you go to the nearby homes. Here we go. Okay. So nearby homes, this tells you literally what properties just sold. You can see the inside of a lot of them. Here we got 113. Oh, I didn't know 113 just sold. Why didn't he sell it to me? I could have bought that property. Daggone. That's the property that's right next to me. Sold for 139. I didn't even ask him. Oh man. Okay. All right. So, anyways, you're looking down here. I see 109, 139. That's how much properties are selling for. So this is just giving you a quick 166 or 166.2. That's 1119 on the corner. 154. So these are telling you nearby property and what they recently sold for. And that again gives you the idea of what they're selling for. And depending on if it's a rental property, you may depending on if it's a rental property, I don't want to go too deep into that either, but it may be based off of how much the rent is compared to the purchase price. If you've heard of the 1% or the 2% rule, a lot of renters would ideally like, if it's traditional real estate, they would ideally like the property to be the rent to be 2% of the actual purchase and overall, not just purchase, but how much it costs to fix it up and get it ready. So for instance, $100,000 property, they want the rent to be $2,000. Now some will go as low as 0.08 to or 1%. So $100,000 property, want the rent to be $1,000. Some might even go $800 because they're playing the long game of building wealth and treating that property as like an equity stash and almost like a bank that's giving them tons of funds. So the overall purchase price can be a little bit higher. But by and large, this will give you an idea of what properties are selling for, which gives you the first indication of what you're going to do. You can also go over to just Zillow, and we don't care how much properties are selling for. We want to know how much properties sold. So we'll click on the filter to put sold, and it should stay in that exact area that you were in. And now it goes to yellow in a second. And there we go. Now look, we got some 270s, 205s. These sold, and to tell you when they sold. They give you the beds and baths. Hopefully they give you a picture of it. So this again can tell you, okay, these are properties that are selling for this price. If you see a big discrepancy, especially if you see ones that like are really beat up, those are awesome ones to look at too, because quite often we're addressing distressed properties. And so if they're really beat up, they'll give you an idea, okay, that at least it's sold for that. So this one sold for $46K. So I know if I get it for like $26K, $30K or something, a similar property, it should fly off the shelf. I can still give them about 10, 15 on the assignment. So that's one. Those are quick ways. Just go into Zillow, put the address in, make sure it's set up to sold, and look at a wide margin, or go specifically as opposed to Atlantically. Go specifically to the property and look down and see what property sold for, and that's pretty much it. And again, this is all for this is for your team, whether the team is you or other folks. It's not necessarily for you to blurt out the offer price to your seller just yet at that point. What you thinking about, Javon? Any thoughts or any questions?
I'm sitting here on Zillow now, looking at the 1115 South Curry Street property. Just trying to follow through with the same steps that you were actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
No questions as of yet. I mean, if I do come up with something, I'll definitely ask you. There was one graph that I came across that was showing little yellow points.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that graph was, but it was a map, and it showed yellow bold points and with prices. What is the yellow? What is the yellow points for? Like, what does that?
Awesome. So if it's yellow, it has the price, like it says 25K, 102K, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That means yellow. That's a great question. So as of now on Zillow, if it's yellow, that means those properties sold. If it's red, that means the properties, that's what they're hoping to sell it for. And if it's purple, I think it's the rent price. So I would go up into the settings and make sure it's on sold, because we're not basing it off what people want to sell it for. We're basing it off of what the market is bearing.
Okay.
And a quick bonus for folks, if you're wondering, like, what's the difference between like people, why people are evaluating this way? Because in traditional real estate that's not commercial, so anything that's 4 units or less is considered traditional real estate. It's very subjective. The value is based on the market, what people are buying in the area like property. That's why appraisals and comparables are so important, because they're basing it off of what they think other people are buying off. That's what the lender's going to lend the person off of usually, and that's what the price is going to be set at. Now, if it was commercial property, the evaluation is completely different. You could have 2 very exact same properties on the same side of the street, same situation there, but it's going to be based off of the net operating income minus the area's capital. What do you call it? Capital rate. But again, that could be a podcast for its own story. So evaluating commercial properties are actually sometimes very fun if you gather the right information, because there's a lot of opportunities to add a lot of value and a lot of opportunities to make large margins, and it isn't so subjective. You can actually, so if you buy a property and find out that it's the value is low because it's not making as much income, but you go into that property and add maybe I don't know, storage units or fix up some of the deferred maintenance that's taking place and raise the rent, already you are raising the value on paper, which then you can turn around and refinance and do a lot of awesome stuff. That's why people love real estate so much. That's why it's so important to be around really smart people who are doing it at a high level. Hey, folks, if you want to chat with me, definitely would love to sit down with you one-on-one, see how we can be a part of each other's journey. You can go to doreideals.com and set up a consultation. That's also a place where you can get free sales systems and scripts that I've gathered and changed and modified over time, as well as if you want to partner on deals. Me and Javon, that's how me and Javon, man, this brother is hungry out here pushing these deals that we were like, man, we got to connect and make this thing happen together. So love to work with you all, and we can JV. I'm not greedy at all, and we can make that happen. Now, if you hopped on this because you're life and transitions experts in podcasting, you're looking at what the probate space or probate real estate space is, the evaluations are pretty much still going to be the same, but you may find that you're better serving your client by offering them a listing price. So whether you're an agent or you know an agent, you can refer them out. I usually give folks at least 4 options. I'm like, here's the cash price we can do. Here's what it is as is. I offer some terms. I tell them what it probably would sell for on the market if they listed it traditionally, and try to give some pluses and minuses for all those situations so they can lead me through my questions to the right terms for them. But at any rate, yeah, check it out. Estate Pro Service would love to work with you if you help navigate the probate process, or you know anyone needs to help navigate the probate process. Connect to a national registry of folks across the country that are estate professionals, and I'm the Durham County probate expert. So love to check you all out. Please hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Me and Javon will stay on for a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off here so that it can be hopefully productive and useful for you all. So appreciate you, and signing off now. Rising tides lifts all sails.